actually to my newest series that I'm working on right now that will be out in September. And it will be free to all of my full year member Worship Design Studio members. You can also get it a la carte if you're not a full year member yet. But it's called Angels Among Us, #Do Not Be Afraid. So this is my new Advent Christmas series. And actually, I just want to share with you that as I was thinking about what to do for Advent Christmas, I thought about, this kind of war of words that seems to be happening right now in our country. And of course, that's where I got the hashtag, right? And I'm thinking about the messages that get flung around. I'm thinking about the ways that words are being used on the streets to tear down people. And I'm thinking, we have to have a different message, and we have to get it out there. And that's what really drew me to this idea of the stories of the angels. And so this series is going to go through, in the 4 Sundays, it's going to go through the angel appearance to Zechariah. It's going to go with the angel appearance to Mary, to Joseph, and to the shepherds. And then actually the Sunday after Christmas, the angel to Joseph again about fleeing to Egypt. And this idea of the messengers, God's messengers, and wondering how can we be messengers in this time and place with a message of #more hope, #more love, #more peace, #more joy. How can we be those messengers? So let's take a look at how I have been designing this. So start with my synopsis. And in your materials page, you can download the synopses for each one of the series that I'm going to highlight. And what that is, it's not necessarily that I expect or want everybody to do my series. I know that some of you will do it because it's speaking in your context, because you feel like it's the right thing for your community. But even more than that, I do these series in the Worship Design Studio to model the process. And it may not be that you do exactly my series, but it may spur you to your own idea, right? So it's just a way of putting things out there to help you imagine what you might do. So you can get the synopsis there. I'm going to use the synopsis in our threshold moment as we get there. So the next thing that I do after I write a synopsis is that I work with an anchor image. Now, some of you have been wondering, maybe, I don't know, Steve, can you get a close-up of this visual setting? From far away, you might not be able to see what's happening here, but I've got feathers. And the idea I'm trying to evoke here, and I might work with it a little bit more if I had more time, but the idea is this mysterious sense of a presence of a messenger having visited. Right? So these feathers that maybe have been left behind, right? So feathers are my anchor image. And as I develop the series, I'm going to figure out how we're going to use those feathers all the way through the series. But that's the thing that I do next, is I come up with an anchor image. So I'm thinking a white, gold, silver palette, or maybe blue and purple are also Advent colors, maybe little white lights, angel wings in different ways. You'll want to visit our Pinterest page because we're starting to make a board of all ideas concerning feathers and angels and things. We're still developing it, but you can always go to the Worship Design Studio Pinterest boards and see a lot of our brainstorming for ideas. So the next thing that I would do is I would come up with frame titles. So what I did is I read the scriptures, those angel encounters, and what I decided for my titles was to pull out a phrase from the message from the angel for each one of those stories. So Advent 1 is make ready a people. And we're going to do the hope, peace, joy, love. That's sort of a traditional Advent kind of thing. And so I have that after the colon. So make ready a people is more hope. Nothing is impossible, which is what the angel says to Mary when she says, what's going on? Are you kidding me? The angel says nothing is impossible with God, right? More peace. And certainly we need more peace in our world. And so that to me really feels like an amazing synergistic thing. Sometimes I think it's hard to imagine that peace is possible in our world. So do not be afraid is Advent 3. Joseph, certainly all these angels say do not be afraid, but in that instance when Joseph is faced with something so incredulous, do not be afraid seems to be the seminal message there, more joy. And then Advent 4 and Christmas Eve are on the same day this year, my friends. I know you know this already. I did a Facebook poll about what people were going to do. Were they going to do Advent 4 in the morning and then Christmas Eve at night? And it's all over the board. You have to discern around your community, will they come twice? Do you want to do Advent 4 with a Christmas Eve bent to it because you know that people are only going to come in the morning or only going to come at night? For my fully scripted series, I'm going to do an Advent 4. I'm going to do a Christmas Eve that has communion in it, and then I'm going to do an amalgamation of those two things as a possibility if you think people are only going to come to one. All right, so that's what I'm planning to do. So you have choices. But this will be a sign, is the angel's message there, attached to more love as the hashtag. And of course, all through the series, you can hashtag, you can actually ask people, if you have social media people in your congregation, right, to actually take pictures out in the world of where they see more love and more joy and more peace and more hope happening, and hashtag that. And, those of you who know about social media, you can go to that hashtag and you see everybody's pictures. It can be very cool. And then the Sunday after Christmas, get up and go, says the angel to Joseph around the flight to Egypt. So I came up with my frames. I've got my structure, right? Whew, I feel very accomplished. I write down some notes about what I think will be happening in each one of those, right, until I can sit down and do my full-blown synopsis. But then I begin to brainstorm about my thread items. And so I'm going to say that I want to do a threshold moment with a song that has that "Do Not Be Afraid" as a key component in it. So Chuck, let's do this. Friends, we're just developing this. So this is the first time anybody's going to see this, and it's only the second time we've tried it. So let's try this. This is Chuck and I like to write little refrains for these fully scripted series. And so this is something that we're working on. And so the threshold moment will consist of the synopsis, which is an introduction to the series. I'm going to do it from Advent 1. Introduction to the series, as well as what we're doing that week. And it will include the song, a litany. So I'm going to talk us through it so you can imagine it, all right? So imagine that we have done our greeting and our announcements, and then we invite people perhaps to a deep breath so that we settle. And some underscoring begins. The angels that appear in the story of Jesus' birth would have been very comfortable in our world of tweets and hashtags. Their messages were often short and to the point, their favorite one being this line, "Do not be afraid." As we look at the stories of these winged messengers to Zechariah and Mary and Joseph and the angels to the shepherds, we'll contemplate what messages we can offer that will fly in the face of fear and bring more hope, more peace, more joy, and more love to the world. So we begin with an angelic visit to Zechariah. It was just another day at the temple for Zechariah. It was his priestly duty to make sure that everything was done properly and in good order. But it turned into something quite different when an angel showed up at the altar. Now imagine a soloist begins to sing, and perhaps is accompanied by the acolyte who's bringing a candle down the center aisle. And here's what the soloist sings. There are angels among us that may not meet the eye. There are messages of hope coming from a choir on high. But don't just look up, for the way God works is to plant more hope right here on earth, just like it was with Jesus' birth. Then the choir joins, perhaps coming up the aisle slowly. There are angels among us. There are angels among us. There are angels among us, bringing hope on earth. So let's say the choir has gotten into the aisles, and maybe there's some children. The children's choir has come in with them, and the children begin this building of this phrase. Not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. And then a prayer happens. Holy living God, blessed Jesus, guiding Spirit, alight us with your flame of hope this day. It's a great time to light the first Advent candle, right? Grant us openness to hear your message. Grant us courage to be your messengers in the world, creating more hope in the midst of fear. And the pastor would say, and with the angel messengers above us, among us, and within us, we sing. And then perhaps the choir, the adult voices add in this do not be afraid. And maybe on the second and third and fourth week, the congregation will have heard it enough times that they will also join in. You can put the music in your worship guide and they can join in this round of do not be afraid as well. Here we go. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. And then you would segue into your opening hymn. Now, ooh, yay! I'm liking it. You know, sometimes you plan something and it sounds better in your head than it does out loud. Well, I think it sounds better out loud than it did in my head, so I'm very grateful. So, one of the things that you'll notice in there that I use the word hope, right? So we would essentially do the same thing each week, but the word would change to peace, love, joy, right? In both the song refrain and in the prayers. And so you get that sense of familiarity, even though the first week it won't be familiar, the second, by the third week, it totally feels familiar. And you know what, I've been singing this ever since we put the melody together. I've been singing it over and over and over in my head. So it's a little bit of an earworm. So I think your congregation will learn it quickly, actually. And so that's what I mean by a threshold moment. Do you see how that's sort of an introit, an opening prayer, call to worship, only much bigger than just let us stand and say our call to worship, and then we do our first hymn, right? It sets the tone, it sets the spiritual journey, it sends us on our way.